Alright, what's going on, guys? We are 1 week away from the release of Elden Ring Nightreign's first DLC, The Forsaken Hollows. And by now, we've got a pretty good picture at what is going to be in this DLC, what all it's bringing, the scope of it, how much content is included, and so on and so forth. And by now, we've gotten the trailer for Scholar, the first of the Night Farers coming, but we just got a new trailer for him explaining the abilities and giving even more gameplay for the DLC. And even though the trailer's only 30 seconds, there is quite a bit to break down. Lots of small details that you might have missed, and we're going to try to get through everything we can. In addition to that, we have more information about what's coming next week, new showcases for the DLC prior to the launch, and we're going to take a deep dive into that as well. So as we get started today, as always, if you want to stay up to date on all things Elden Ring Nightreign, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and now let's get into it. So like I mentioned, today we got the trailer for Scholar's abilities. This is an additional trailer coming after the initial character trailer that takes a bit more of a deep dive into his exact abilities, what he does, their names and all that sort of stuff. Which is good because the character trailer didn't really explain it very well. There's a lot of nuance to his abilities. So if you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to go ahead and let it play through one time since it's very short, and then we're going to break it down.
We must bring an end to the night. Remember, even gods have weaknesses. Now I've set eyes upon things that were only known to me in books.
So like I said, they're very short, but there's quite a bit to unpack. And let's start at the very beginning. Here we get a new blurb and description for our character. Scholar, a traveling arcane academic seeking knowledge. Gains incredible advantages on the battlefield through observation. Now the whole observation part didn't make a whole lot of sense without context, but now that we know more of his abilities, the picture is painted pretty clearly. And the first ability, his passive effect, is Bagcraft, which allows you to store additional resources, and you can level up the power or effect of items by using them frequently. Now that is actually a very powerful ability, and that's one aspect of the game that a lot of people tend to forget about. Items in Nightreign are very powerful. They offer significant advantages, and especially when you're playing Deep of Night on like Depth 3 and beyond, you really need to be spamming items. So even being able to hold more of them is very strong, but it says you can level up the power or effect. Now when we had the code name of Scholar data mined in the files, he was called Buffer. Now I figured that his abilities would have effects that buff allies, but I kind of like the direction they're taking here. Instead of just having straight buff effects to characters, instead you'll be able to use more effectively items that buff your teammates. So not only does this create an interesting playstyle, it encourages exploring the map differently as well. Instead of just running from boss to boss, you now may want to make pit stops at places like merchants or enemy forts that have lots of crates or chests to stock up on items and spam them throughout the game to level up their effects. So I think this ability is super cool. But moving on now. The next shot in the trailer shows us the character's skill called Analyze, which has the description of study your enemies. The longer you observe, the better your combat advantage. Now before we talk about exactly what this does, let's take a look at some of the areas we can see here. In the first shot of this section, we can see Scholar and Raider fighting some Blood Fiends, a new enemy type coming to the DLC. That was of course from Shadow of the Erdtree. Now these definitely weren't my favorite enemies by any means, but it is good to have more diversity, and they definitely fight very different than a lot of the regular enemies we have in Nightreign right now. You'll also notice a lot of light blue crystals in a big staircase, so I think this could be part of the new Shifting Earth, the Great Hollow. And in the next shot, we are definitely in the Great Hollow, as you can see it all there in the background. But we see a new enemy type returning, which a lot of people were excited about, the Divine Bird Warriors. Happy to see these guys make a comeback. They were definitely one of my favorite enemies in the DLC for the base game of Elden Ring. But the Great Hollow looks super cool. I really like the vibe of that Shifting Earth, and I think it's going to be packed full of secrets. But let's talk about this ability now. Analyze makes Scholar focus his camera, and any enemies caught in the lens will have a meter that starts filling up in a circle. Once that meter is all the way full, it casts a significant debuff on the enemies. Now, what exactly is that debuff? Well, they don't say for certain, but I imagine it's things like they take more damage, they deal less damage, and they probably take more stagger damage as well. But one other thing you can notice is that when he's casting this, after that meter is filled and the Divine Bird Warrior strikes him, it breaks the ability, but shatters a sort of shield on Scholar that staggers the Divine Bird Warrior backwards. Now this makes me wonder a few things. Number one, if you get hit before the meter fills all the way, does this explosion effect still still happen? And can it be used to tank certain attacks? Kind of like Raider's skill where you take less damage while active and you can't actually die. If that is the case, that's going to be very nice. But this skill is super strong. Anything that can debuff a group of enemies is going to help out significantly in Nightreign, and I definitely would not be complaining to have a Scholar on my team. But then we get to the final part of this trailer, which showcases his ultimate art, called Communion, which was called Joint Chain in the files, but I think Communion is a much better name. This description reads, Taboo Knowledge. Damage is shared by linked enemies and can heal threaded allies. So you can see here, when he casts this ultimate art, it sends out a shockwave in a big circle, and all enemies and allies in that circle are linked. And this seems to function exactly as we predicted, where damage is shared between all enemies in that link, but allies that are linked get healed by the damage dealt to the enemies. Now, just as an ability on its own, I think that is super powerful, definitely going to be incredibly strong in a team setting, and in the overworld as we see them doing here with the Banished Knights. But we still have the same question we were asking in the last video, where, what is the utility here in a solo setting against a boss? Does this ultimate cast a debuff, and does Scholar himself get healed by hitting these enemies, or is it just teammates? That's the question I want to have an answer to. I imagine it does, because there has to be at least some function in solo play. But that is a much clearer picture of Scholar and his abilities. Now we know exactly what they do, and I think he is going to be an incredibly powerful Nightfarer. Probably not super strong on his own, but especially in a team setting, you're going to want a Scholar on your team. Now for the remainder of the video, let's talk about what we can expect in the next few days leading up to the release. First of all, there's a new announcement from Famitsu. Elden Ring Nightreign DLC special program will be broadcasted live on December 2nd, 2025, explaining the appeal of the Forsaken Hollows with Fromsoftware's Yasuhiro Kitao. So there's going to be a live stream on that day where they'll probably be playing the DLC and talking about it and so on and so forth. And that will be the Tuesday before the launch on Thursday. Now, in addition to that, we can likely expect to get an Undertaker trailer sometime, probably Monday if I had to guess, because Tuesday is typically when we get launch trailers, 2 days before the launch. Now, I doubt they're going to drop any trailers this weekend. I would be surprised if they do, but I would imagine an Undertaker character trailer on Monday, launch trailer, and maybe Undertaker abilities trailer on Tuesday, alongside this live stream from Famitsu, and then Wednesday, the drop is going to happen sometime in the afternoon, if you're hopping on a plane to New Zealand like me. So we got a lot going on, a lot to look forward to, pretty much all week next week. But y'all let me know, how excited are you for the Forsaken Hollows? What are you thinking about Scholar, now that we have a much better picture of his abilities? And what about the DLC are you most excited for? Either way though, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like on it and subscribe if you're new around here, and I will catch you in the next one.